Disco Doctor here. In today's video, I'm going to kind of teach you how to essentially buy one of these, what to look out for, the price range, what years to buy, blase, blase, blase. But I do want to mention two things before we get into the video. One being that when I talk about prices and problems with these, we are talking about these vehicles that are kind of living in the southeast territory of United States. We're not going to talk about rust. We're not going to talk about things that you need to look out for because different areas have different salt exposure. Because I think all vehicles have salt problems. They appear in different areas because of how the vehicle's built and what's aluminum versus what's steel and what materials, and blase blase. So we're not going to worry about that because it's apparent where rust is because it shows itself. These are just going to be problems that are essentially every Land Rover Discovery 2 will have, or what it already has. So that's when it comes to like problems with these, that's what we're going to be talking about. And the other thing is I want to give two shout outs to some supporters. They don't pay money for this channel, or they give money to this channel. They're always commenting, they're subscribers, they're always liking the videos, always putting input. And that is Juke179R. I don't know if that's supposed to mean something, but thank you, Juke, for always commenting and being a subscriber. And then also my wife, she is a subscriber also, but she's always encouraging me to, get out there and do these videos, even when I want to throw this in the, junkyard or part it out because I'm just so sick of it. She doesn't let me give up on my dreams. So, I appreciate you both. And, if you guys want to be, and part of these shout outs that I start doing with these videos, make sure you guys, like the videos, comment, give a little input in the channel. These are for you. And I want you guys to be able to, kind of mold the channel to what you need it for. And by saying that, I also want to point out that I am going to now be putting a poll up on my YouTube channel for what the next video needs to be. And Juke was the only one who voted for the last poll, and it was to do a buyer's guide. So that's why we're doing this video. So proof is in the pudding. If you guys talk about it, I will do it in my videos. I don't have every problem with it. I'm not gonna show you guys how to do a head gasket problem or a head gasket repair because I don't have a head gasket problem in this. So I can't artificially make problems, but I will in that poll have different subjects that you guys can vote for. And if you put in the comment section what you want to see, or maybe a video idea that you would be interested in, I can see if I can do them. But like I said, if it's not a current problem, I'm not gonna throw money at this just to make a YouTube channel when the part is fine, or the problem isn't presenting itself yet. So with all that said, let's go ahead and talk about the first thing, which is essentially the I guess the years that you want to buy these, what years you want to look at, and kind of reason why you want those years. So Land Rover Discovery 2 years are 99 through 04. Now, they are kind of separated into two different sections, one being pre-facelift and one being facelift. This is a pre-facelift version. You can tell because the headlights are different, and there's a little bit of grill aesthetic that's changed a little bit. Of course, we don't have a grill on this one. You can't really see it, but you can always tell by the headlights. There's a few other things that are different between the years that Land Rover made these. 99 to 01 have a center locking diff and a shifter inside that you can put it in, you can engage the center locking diff. Now, early to mid O2s have the center locking diff down there and have the essentially the components to engage it, but there is no lever on the inside. Uh, there's a bunch of videos and a bunch of speculation on why they did it. But essentially, they thought that their traction management and all that craziness was so efficient that they didn't need a center locking diff. They ended up bringing them back in late '03 and '04. That is the facelift version. They brought it back because a lot of people were complaining that they didn't have a center locking diff. This does not have a center locking diff. I didn't know about this phenomenon until after I purchased it. And so we're kind of stuck with it. So that will eventually be resolved. But for now, we're just going to kind of let it not have a center locking diff, which does make a world of a difference. So if we are going to talk about what years you want to buy 99 to 01. It's a lot easier to just avoid trying to install the lever and the cables and all that mess in the early '02s. And then late '03 and all through '04, the facelift version of this model. Those is when it came back with the center locking diff and both with the lever inside. Now, there's a bunch of different engine changes with this. They essentially bored out the cylinders as the years go on to give it more power. And there's a debate within the community whether you want the older years because the cylinders aren't as bored out. I think if I remember correctly, it's either 3.7 or 3.8 or 3.9. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's essentially where the engine started off at. And now, they climb up into the fours. But a lot of people say that the earlier engines have more longevity, which I would agree with. But you are also still having those same issues that happened with all the years, which is the head gasket. And we'll get into that later. I don't want to try to skip videos. But a lot of people prefer the early years because they're not really too concerned about the facelift. Some people like the facelift, some people don't. But when it comes to purchasing these, the main difference is that center locking diff. And that is key if you are going to take these off road. It helps tremendously. Okay, so now that we got the years out of the way and which ones you want to get, now remember that's 99 to 01. Skip 02 and 03 when it comes to early '03, and then late '03 and '04 is another year stretch that you want to get. We're going to talk about price range. Now, these are becoming fewer and fewer, rare and rare, and they don't always appear on Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes you got to go to the forums because a lot of these people who have these either are parting them out or they want to sell to another Land Rover enthusiast. So finding ones on Facebook or Craigslist is getting harder as the years go on, but that doesn't mean they're not there. That just means that the more common posting places, they're not present on. A few good sources that I found outside of Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace in the forums like Discovery Web and Land Rover forums in general is you can find them at like those auto auction places like Copart. And a lot of these might have salvage titles and stuff like that, but you got to remember that something really simple when it comes to insurance, can salvage these out. So if you're not adverse to having a salvage title, there might not be anything wrong with them. It's just the insurance company decided that, you know, to essentially pay out whatever caused it to have, if it was mechanical or if it was, someone actually hit it. The vehicle has been priced out essentially. You guys know how insurance works. And if you don't, I'm not going to tell you how, because it's a little bit above my head. But I do want to point out that Copart and other places like that have them. Now, price range is anywhere from $1,000, and this is going to be crazy, to $20,000. Now, the 20,000 mark are usually very low mileage, or they have the LS swap, the 5.3 LS, or the, I think, 6.0. I think I found a few 6.0 swaps, and there's nothing wrong with doing an LS swap, but that's why you're paying for it, is because now you have finally overcome the only negative thing about this vehicle, which is its engine. And now it is essentially bulletproof. And those LS engines, depending on how they put them in and what aftermarket products they used, maybe some of them are turbocharged and stuff like that. Some of them get a little crazy, but if it's just a regular naturally aspirated LS 5.3, this vehicle is now like perfect. So that's why that 20,000 is up there, is because people have done some interesting builds with these. Now, the median is around $3,000 to $5,000. And this is for all years. I know I told you specifically avoid some, but to try to pick out what year and what price range, it's just too much. So you are essentially the pick up and drive, drive it off the lot or drive it from the guy's driveway, is around that 3,000 to 5,000. If you get lower than that, nothing. Sometimes there's something mechanically wrong with them. Sometimes it's just cosmetic. I've noticed on all the ones that are below 3,000, they're just ugly. The paint's faded, the plastic's all tore up, the interior might be bad. There are a few that say like, oh, it has like a head gasket problem, and you can pick those up and do the LS swap or replace the head gasket, and now you have a completely drivable vehicle. Because luckily for these, the interior, excuse me, I got something going on. I got like burps or whatever. The interior of these across the market are in really good shape. There are a few that have some leaks from the sunroofs and stuff like that have caused some damage on the interior, but there are plenty of ways to fix those things. There's plenty of parts on the market to get those fixed. So don't fret if you see those things. But that is kind of your price range. That 3,000 to 5,000 will get you a Land Rover that will drive, won't have any mechanical issues. You might have to do a little bit of fixing. Like, you got to be careful that it's not $5,000 because they put a $2,000 bumper on the front. You kind of want to stay more towards the untouched, and then make it your own through aftermarket parts and stuff like that, because a lot of people buy that crazy roof rack or that tent on top and they include that in the price, and that's fine. Man, why the hell are you honking your horn? Sorry about that. They include the price in that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with including all the aftermarket parts, but you're going to pay for it, and a lot of those parts that are put on are to hide other problems, which gets me into my next part, which is we'll walk around Jebel here, and I'm going to point out some things that you're going to look for. And sometimes these are negotiating tools to lower the price, or sometimes these are just, like I'm going to avoid this at all costs because I don't really want to get into that. So let's go ahead and get you guys inside the engine bay and point out a few things. Alrighty. So when you're in the engine compartment, you're going to notice that everything's wet. Land Rovers are notorious for leaking. Valve covers leak a lot. You know, these are getting up there in age, so there's a bunch of miscellaneous components that will start to leak or wear out and stuff like that. You know, if they have a aftermarket thermostat like I do, maybe they didn't do some proper installs. There's a lot of things that can happen. So we're going to talk about a few of the more crucial things, and then we'll talk about the so much non-crucial things that you know, you might have to fill it full of oil every time, but you know, you might start burning oil, not really burning oil, but seeping oil, but it's okay because you know, it's not gonna further damage the vehicle as long as you keep the top of the fluids. So the first thing when I'm looking at a Land Rover is I check the reservoir. If that reservoir is empty, do not buy it. Okay? Do not buy the vehicle. What has probably happened is the head gaskets have gone bad and it either burned off all the coolant because it got into the exhaust system, or it's completely you know, gone bad with like the cylinder sleeve coming undone and stuff like that, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So reservoir, and then also check the dipstick. Make sure it doesn't look whitish like milkshake. It means that antifreeze has, or water in general, has mixed with the oil, and you don't want that, because you don't know if the block's been damaged. Like I said, if the cylinder sleeves have come loose and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with a head gasket problem, but unless you're an experienced mechanic, just don't really take on more than you can chew. You know, don't bite off more than you can chew. One thing I will point out is, it's better on this side. Give me 1 second. Let me grab you guys. Land Rovers are notorious for having valve cover leaks. Oh, I don't know if you guys can tell on the camera. Let me see if I can see if you zap zoom. Yeah, it's but you see all that oil. It's a common problem for these Land Rovers. It's okay. You're just going to have to fill it up a lot. The part is not that expensive and it's not that hard to do. But you know, just be wary of it when you guys are you know, looking at these. You want to make sure you run them. Of course, have the engine on and check the belts and all the normal stuff. But when it comes to Land Rover specific things, or not really Land Rover, but Discovery specific things, those are the most common that you can see by just being in the engine compartment. Okay. I'm not going to show you because I have a whole video on it and you could check that out. But another problem that these have are the three amigos. Now, the three amigos are caused by a whole plethora of things, and in that video I describe it. But you know, check out that video also if you're not familiar with the three amigos, because I talk about them. But that's another thing to look out for when it comes to these Land Rovers. Now we're going to go underneath and we're going to go look at the axles. We're going to look at the differentials and the transfer case and all that stuff. And we're going to talk about a few things while we're down there. Okay. So let's go ahead and get underneath this vehicle.
We're underneath this Land Rover, and I want to point out the first thing, which is the front drive shaft. As you can see in their design, they placed it really close to the exhaust, and it does have a heat shield and all that mess. But what happens with these is that front drive shaft gets very hot and essentially fails because it's just too much heat and movement and stress and all that stuff aren't a great combination. So you want to check the front drive shaft. A lot of these have already been replaced at least once. So if it has been replaced, that's a good thing. But you want to check the U-bolts. And if you do happen to have to replace this in the future, you need to get a greasable drive shaft. It helps prevent the heat from causing too much damage. And, there's a lot of aftermarket solutions that make this never a problem. You could also change where your exhaust goes and, maybe add some more heated protection and stuff like that. But we're not going to talk about those things. We're just going to kind of point it out and let you know to check the front drive shaft. Another thing is these Land Rovers transfer cases. Look at me. Hey, love to leak. They're just a gasket problem. You can replace the gasket and be done with it. Bim bam boop and move on. The differentials like to leak also. Let me get you guys to look over here. The differentials like to leak too. So when you guys are checking these differentials and these essentially transfer cases, they're not essentially transfer cases, they are transfer cases, you do want to inspect to make sure that they haven't run dry. And also make sure that if it is leaking, that the gasket is the issue and it isn't something more serious like a crack or something like that. So just pay attention to that. That's a common thing, but that doesn't necessarily exempt it from being purchased. Alrighty, so now that we got the undercarriage looked at, let's go ahead and jump on the inside of the Land Rover and talk about a few things that are what to look out for. Alrighty, so inside every Land Rover, there's a leak, okay? The sunroofs leak. It's either happening or it's gonna happen, okay? The reason for that is because, like I've mentioned in previous videos, and a lot of people on the forums talk about it, is the plastics of this vehicle. I don't know why they didn't go with weather resistant plastic, but all the plastic likes to break, and people will go, oh, it's because it's an older vehicle. No, there's plenty of older vehicles, 20-year-old vehicles, that the bumper doesn't fall apart because you poked it too hard, or the drain plugs essentially shattered because you hit a speed bump. Not fast, just hit one, okay? So you need to inspect the sunroofs. More specifically, you need to essentially turn the vehicle on when it's hot outside and see if the sunroofs automatically open, okay? If they open automatically, it's not a hard fix. There's a control module that sits right behind the buttons. It's essentially the windshield, or the sunroof computer. It got damaged by water because the sunroof was leaking, or maybe they flooded the vehicle or whatever. And now that computer, when it gets hot, it likes to essentially automatically open the sunroofs. So if it doesn't say you can't buy that vehicle. It's just something to be aware of and, be cautious of, okay? Another thing that likes to break, and I'm going to tilt you real quick, are these little, essentially, they're like fabric to block out the sun. It's just like a sunshade. The hooks on them like to break, and it's harder and harder to come across these little sunshades or whatever you want to call them. You can find them on parted out Land Rovers and stuff like that, but they get baked 24/7 because of the sunroof. And I will be honest with you guys, it is a must for me to have, whether I fix it or purchase a vehicle like it is with them. I have to have these, because when the sun is hitting me, I hate it. I wish more sunroofed vehicles had the sunshade, because I like the window being open, but man, this bald head of mine, it gets cooked. And so instead of wearing a hat everywhere, I like to show off my shiny glee. But and you can tell the difference. even with this, you see how much shade it provides. And there's 2 of them for each sunroof, and they're in the back sunroof also. So, you know, they're a wonderful thing, but you need to check those. When you are checking on the inside, it's going to be very apparent if there's a leak in the sunroof, like I mentioned earlier. The front little bar, there will be a leak, or not the front bar, the front portion of the headliner board. You'll see water damage or oh man, my camera just dropped. Like I was saying, there'll be a leak on this that it's sometimes, a lot of the times, is the sunroof. And now I'm thinking about it, I'm going to point out another spot there could be a leak, but it's on the outside of the vehicle. But just be wary that the roof will leak in some aspect, and to look out for that. And a lot of people also, because these leak a lot, like to seal the sunroof. So make sure you ask that question. Did you guys seal the sunroof? And when I say seal them, I'm talking about they seal them shut, so where they're inoperable. You can restore it, but you have to essentially take it all out, buy new ones, and reinstall the whole thing. And it's not, some people just like not having to be having that problem anymore, and some people like to have sunroofs like I do. I mean, I was very interested in Land Rovers in general when I found out they had 2 sunroofs. That I thought that was pretty cool. So for the inside, you know, the plastic parts like to deteriorate, and the sunroof. Let's go back on the outside to show you guys the last thing that I can think of. And if you guys have more that you come across, if you've had a few Land Rovers and stuff like that, put a comment in the comment section below, and I will do a short on it and talk about it, and maybe some possible solutions or possible things. But with all further ado, let's jump outside real quick and show you guys the last thing that it comes to when you're essentially trying to find a Land Rover to buy. You're supposed to have some plastic right here. Mine, like I mentioned before, was super brittle and it broke. So I got to purchase new ones, but there's supposed to be a plastic cover that sits right here that is necessary. But sometimes either here or in this gutter, it starts to separate and will cause a leak when it starts to rain. So you might have to put essentially sealant here, or do new windshield sealant. But that is the whole length of the gutter is a possible place for it to leak. I've heard that these leak a lot, but it's really hard to say that that is a Land Rover or a Discovery 2 problem, because these vehicles are so old that these seals go anyway, no matter what the vehicle is. So I'm gonna mention it, but I'm not gonna say that this is a Discovery 2 or Land Rover problem. So all of that being said, guys, that is what you need to know when buying a Land Rover Discovery 2. If you guys like the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be putting a new poll up to essentially talk about what, or not a new poll to talk about, but a new poll for you guys to pick what the next video is about. And I will catch you guys on the next video.